friend. You've stepped into a peaceful haven, a place where all tension dissolves and the only direction is inward. Here we trade the frantic pace of the world for the slow, unhurried rhythm of the turning night. Take a moment to settle in, to soften your shoulders and unclench your hands. Allow your body to sink fully into the comfort beneath you, feeling the gentle release of gravity. With every breath in, you gather stillness. With every breath out, you release what you no longer need. This time is a gift you give yourself, a conscious permission to stop striving, to stop measuring, and simply to be. Tonight, our story will act like a gentle hand, guiding you away from the day's bright distractions and into the deep, velvety quiet that waits for you in sleep. You don't need to follow the plot, remember the names, or stay perfectly focused. Just let the words wash over you, a soft, flowing current carrying you deeper and deeper into rest. Settle in, close your eyes whenever you are ready, and allow yourself to drift. Once, long ago, in a world where the sea was still thought to curve endlessly over the edge, there stood a lighthouse known as the Tower of the Timeless Light. It wasn't built on a jagged cliff or a stormy shore, but on a low, sandy quay, a place of gentle waves, whispering tides, and profound, unchanging calm. The light it cast was not a frantic, flashing beam, but a steady, warm, amber glow that seemed to hold the darkness at bay without ever trying to fight it. Our story is about a lighthouse keeper named Caspian. By trade, Caspian was a man of routines. His life was governed by the clock, the logbook, and the precise ritual of maintaining the massive lantern. He was an archivist of time, a man whose purpose was to record the hours, the tides, and the weather with absolute, unblinking accuracy. Every minute of his day was accounted for. The polishing of the lens, the winding of the mechanism, the entry of the sun's rise and set. Yet Caspian was profoundly lost. He was lost in a way that maps could not fix, a separation from the present moment that left him constantly chasing the shadow of the past or the anxious outline of the future. His world had become a meticulous, empty schedule. His joy, once found in the sheer, powerful rhythm of the ocean, had been replaced by the anxious pressure of the clock's incessant tick-tock. He dreamed not of the endless horizon, but of missed entries, late adjustments, and the fear of letting a single moment of the day escape his record-keeping. The world, for him, had lost its fluidity. It had become a series of points to be measured and duties to be completed. One afternoon, while turning the pages of an old, salt-stained logbook, he found a curious inscription tucked inside the back cover. It was written in a loose, sprawling hand, a stark contrast to his own rigid script. It spoke of the timeless light and said, "This tower does not mark where you are, but when you are. To find your present, you must stop searching for the last one. And to witness eternity, you must lay down your measure and learn to simply be." A gentle tremor of something, not panic, but a deep, unfamiliar yearning, stirred in Caspian's heart. A place where time could not be measured. It was a professional insult, an illogical contradiction. But deeper than that, it was a hint of a different life, a life not bound by the cruel certainty of minutes and seconds. That night, for the first time in years, he made a decision not based on duty, but on a strangely soulful curiosity. He would attempt to understand the secret of the timeless light. He carried his finest chronometers, his most accurate barometer, his sharpest quills, and his new blank logbook up the winding stairs. He was Caspian, the archivist of time. He would chart the unchartable. He would conquer this mystery with reason and precision. The mechanism of the lighthouse was deceptively simple. A massive brass-bound pendulum swung back and forth, driving a slow series of gears that rotated the great lens. The gentle, rhythmic swoosh of the pendulum was the constant, quiet heartbeat of the tower. Caspian set to work immediately. He checked his personal watch against the tower clock, noted the air pressure, and began his careful observation of the light's rotation. For the first few hours, it went well. The light was steady, the clock was precise. But as the moon began to climb the dark velvet sky, strange things began to happen. He would check the tower clock, mark the exact minute, and turn to enter it in his log, only to look up a moment later and find the minute hand had not moved. He would stare at the pendulum, whose hypnotic swoosh swoosh should have marked the perfect rhythm of the seconds, but the space between the sounds seemed to stretch and contract, as if time itself were breathing. He'd follow a line of thought, clear and straight, and it would dissolve into a thick, sweet haze of drowsiness, leaving him standing in a circle of golden light and silence. Frustration, a feeling he knew well, began to prick at him. He was a master of his craft. He understood the world through its physical laws. This tower was breaking them, mocking his expertise. As midnight deepened, Caspian was well and truly lost. Lost not in space, but in the present moment. He slumped onto a wooden stool, his expensive instruments lying useless on the floor. The light, which had seemed so orderly, now felt vast and unknowable. He had come to conquer time, and instead he felt utterly and completely timeless. He was not the archivist of time here. He was just a tired man in a circle of golden light. He closed his eyes, expecting to feel a surge of panic. Instead, a wave of profound calm washed over him. In losing his grip on the clock, he was finally free from the pressure of having to catch the moment. For the first time in a very long time, he had no schedule, no destination, no next minute to worry about. There was nothing to do but be. He must have drifted off, for when he opened his eyes again, the room was bathed in the gentle amber glow of the lamp, and a soft, rhythmic sound was near. And he was not alone. Seated on a low bench nearby was a figure. It was hard to tell if he was old or young. His form seemed woven from the very air of the tower itself. His clothes were the color of old parchment, and his hands, which rested on a simple drum made of smooth, polished wood, were moving slowly, rhythmically, tapping out the gentle beat. "Your measurements are very small," the figure said, his voice like the soft, hushed pulse of a drum. "They do not account for the slow turning of the earth, nor the vast flow of the ocean. They are only the quick steps of your anxiety." Caspian, startled, could only stare. Who are you?" "Some call me Chrono," the figure said, his fingers never ceasing their gentle tap. "I am the drummer of this place. I mark the time between the seconds and beat the pace of the slow tides. You, archivists, seem to be trying to fence the world with numbers. But the world does not like to be fenced. It likes to flow." Caspian looked at his logbook, now covered with his rigid, pointless notes, and they seemed stark and foolish in the amber light. "I am lost," he admitted, the words tasting strange and true on his tongue. Chrono smiled, a slow, patient expression that seemed to crinkle the corners of his ancient eyes. "Excellent," he said. "That is the only moment you truly have. To feel the heart of this light, you must learn its 3 great secrets. But they cannot be taught with numbers alone. You must feel them." He rose, his form as solid as the tower itself, and gestured for Caspian to follow. He left his instruments where they lay, a silent surrender, and walked with him deeper into the light. Their first stop was the pendulum itself. The great brass-bound weight was swaying in its slow, powerful arc. "This is the heart of the now," Chrono whispered, his voice barely disturbing the air. "The first secret is learning to release." "I watch it constantly," Caspian said after a moment, straining his eyes. "That is because you are looking for its endpoint," Chrono replied gently. "You are looking for the moment it will stop, the point where it changes direction. Stop looking forward or backward. Just watch the middle." Caspian was confused, but he did as he suggested. He focused only on the exact tiny moment when the pendulum was directly in the center of its arc, moving at its fastest, purest speed. It was difficult. His mind, so used to grabbing the past and worrying about the future, kept trying to project. It will swing left. It will swing right. But slowly, patiently, he let those thoughts drift away like smoke. And then he began to feel it. It wasn't a visual moment, but a deep bodily sense, a feeling of complete, rushing immediacy. He was not waiting for the end of the arc, nor was he remembering the beginning. He was only in that instant of powerful, pure momentum. The past was gone. The future was unwritten. There was only that rushing center point, over and over, eternally present. He could feel, more than see, the enormous, contented energy of what is, the quiet, unceasing power of the current moment. It asked for nothing. It simply was. He felt the frantic, buzzing energy within him begin to quiet, to attune itself to this slower, deeper rhythm. He stood there for what felt like an eternity, breathing in time with the swing until the distinction between his anxious planning and the tower's steady being began to blur. When he finally opened his eyes, he felt a stillness he hadn't experienced since he was a small boy watching a sandcastle dissolve into the tide. "Your logbooks show what happened," Chrono said softly, his drumming continuing in the dim light. "But they do not show how it felt. They do not show the now." Next, Chrono led him down to the small, round oil lamp, which sat unlit, a simple vessel of dark metal. The air here was heavy with the rich, earthy scent of old lamp oil. "This is the vessel of potential," Chrono explained. "This is where you will learn the second secret, the art of receiving." Caspian looked at the lamp. "It feels empty. It's just a piece of metal." "Only if you believe that to be empty is to be lost," he corrected. "It is not empty. It is simply waiting to be filled. The past is what has been burned. The future is the light that will come. This vessel is the present. You cannot force the light, and you cannot reclaim the smoke. You can only open yourself to receive the oil, patiently, drop by drop." Chrono gestured for him to place his hand on the cool metal. As he did, Caspian felt a sudden sharp memory, the map of his life he had sketched out in his 20s. A perfect career, a precise timeline for success, all drawn with rigid, unforgiving lines. He had been so angry when life didn't follow those lines, so resentful of the detours, the failures, the unplanned quiet times. He had carried the weight of that disappointed plan for years, holding it like a shield against the messy reality of his life. "You carry that blueprint everywhere." Chrono's voice was gentle beside him. "You compare every step of your real journey to the one you drew on the page. But the world is not a blueprint. It is a painting. You do not have to throw away the plan," said Chrono. "You only have to realize that you are not meant to build it. You are meant to live it. Let the blueprint rest here, with the other things that have served their time. Thank it for giving you direction, and open your hands to receive the reality of what is actually being offered." Caspian took a deep breath, the rich scent of the oil filling his lungs. He thought of his rigid, younger self, not with the sharp pain of regret, but with a soft, warm tenderness. He had learned that life rarely follows a straight line. That was a part of his story. It did not have to be its judge. With a quiet intention, he felt the disappointed blueprint dissolve in his mind. He opened his hand on the cool metal, a silent gesture of acceptance. The knot he hadn't even realized he was carrying in his chest began to dissolve. The third and final place Chrono took him to was the great lens itself. It was a series of enormous, polished crystals, catching the moonlight and turning it into a powerful, golden beam. "This is the luminous focus," Chrono said, and the final secret is learning to glow. Elias felt a familiar anxiety tighten its grip on him. This was the source of his sleepless nights, the endless pressure of performance, the constant worry about being enough, the fear of his light being too dim. He felt dizzy watching the endless, powerful beam cut through the night. "It's too much," he said, stepping back from the glass. "How can anyone shine that brightly all the time? How can you know if you are making a difference?" Chrono didn't answer. Instead, he bent down and picked up a single, smooth, gray stone from the corner of the room. He placed it in Caspian's palm. It was cool and solid, its surface worn satiny by the long, patient years of the tower. "You are not the beam," he said softly. "You cannot control how far the light travels or who sees it. You are this stone, right here, right now. Feel its weight in your hand. Feel its coolness against your skin. This is real. The beam is just a momentary projection. The stone is what is." Caspian focused on the stone. He felt its perfect, simple reality. It was just a stone. It wasn't worried about the storm outside. It wasn't regretting the mountain it came from. It was just here, now, in his hand. He closed his hand around it, the solidness a comfort. He looked at the lens again, but this time he didn't try to measure its power. He just watched the light dance on the surface of the glass, listened to the gentle, burbling sound the turning mechanism made as it moved past. The purpose could wait. It would arrive one moment at a time, just as the light flowed one drop of oil at a time. The only moment he had to live in was this one. They spent the rest of the night not talking, but simply being. Chrono continued his gentle drumming, his slow pulse catching the dreams of the sleeping ocean. Caspian watched him, no longer trying to understand the mechanics of his magic, but simply appreciating its rhythm. He watched as tiny, luminous dust motes, caught in the amber light, danced without effort or purpose. Their simple, unproductive being felt like a profound revelation. As the first pale fingers of dawn began to stretch across the sky, tinting the edges of the world in soft rose and coral, Chrono stopped his drumming. He held out the smooth, gray stone he had given to Caspian. It was warm now, heated by his hand. "The world is not a problem to be solved, archivist," Chrono said, his eyes kind. "It is a song to be felt, a dance to be witnessed, a moment to be lived. Your old logbooks were true, but they were not whole. They showed the schedule of the world, but not its soul." Caspian took the stone. It felt warm and solid in his hands. He looked from the stone to the awakening world outside the window, now coming alive with the chirps of gulls and the rustle of the morning tide, and he finally understood. He had come here to impose his order on time, but time had gifted him with its own far deeper timelessness. He did not know how he descended the stairs. The steps seemed to simply appear before him, as if the tower itself were gently carrying him down. When he emerged from the shade of the doorway into the bright morning sun, he turned back and saw his instruments lying where he had left them. He picked them up, but they felt different in his hands. No longer weapons of control, but tools of honesty. Caspian returned to his duties, but he was not the same man who had left. He was quieter, slower. He still recorded the hours, but they were different now. He still used his numbers and measurements, for they had their own truth, but he began to add other things. He would use a softer, looping script to note not just the tide, but how the air felt. He would draw a small stippled star in the margin to indicate the exact moment of the night when the light was at its clearest and the silence was deepest. Some of the supply sailors scoffed. They called his new logbooks imprecise, sentimental. But others, the fishermen, the poets, the tired souls like himself, found them to be the truest records they had ever seen. People began to use his logbooks not just to find a date, but to find a feeling, a place of quiet, a moment of peace, a time to simply be. Caspian never lost the weariness in his bones completely, for that is part of the human story. But now he knew what to do with it. On nights when the world felt too loud and the clocks ticked too sharp, he would take out the small, smooth stone Chrono had given him. He would run his fingers over its satiny, patient surface, and he would remember the 3 secrets. He would remember to release his grip, allowing the frantic rhythm of the pendulum, the past and the future, to become a gentle, unhurried swoosh in his mind. He would remember to receive, placing the heavy blueprint of what should have been on the cool, dark metal of his mind, allowing it to rest. And he would remember to glow, to be the simple, solid reality of the stone in his hand, present only in the peaceful moment he was in. And so, as the world outside your own window now softens into shadow and silver, perhaps you can feel the steady light of the timeless tower around you. You don't need to sail to a distant quay to find its peace. It exists in the quiet space of your own stillness. Release. Can you feel the gentle pendulum of your breath swaying slowly, calmly in your chest? Let go of the need to measure the future or regret the past. Just watch the middle. Receive. Picture all the anxieties of the day, all the rigid plans for tomorrow as old, crumpled blueprints. You don't need to solve them tonight. Just gently place them down on the cool, soft earth. Let them rest. They will be there in the morning, and perhaps by then they will seem a little lighter, and now glow. Feel the gentle weight of the blankets upon you, a comforting and solid pressure. Feel the air as you breathe in, cool and clean, and as you breathe out, warm and soft. This moment, this very breath, it is the only thing that is real, and it is peaceful. It is enough. There are no lines to draw, no clocks to wind. is only the slow, gentle tide of slumber pulling you out into a calm and quiet sea. The paths of your dreams are not made of schedules and certainty, but of memory and moonlight. And to find your way there, all you need to do is let go and listen to the whisper of the night as it welcomes you home to rest. And now the story has reached its quiet ending. The words can fade like distant echoes while you remain here in the stillness you found. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to chase, only the slow rhythm of your breath, the steady beat of your heart, and the gentle tide of sleep rising within you. Allow your thoughts to loosen, like threads unraveling. If worries come, let them drift away like clouds passing across the night sky. You don't need to hold them. You don't need to solve them. This is your time of rest, your time to be. The night will take care of itself, and the morning will come in its own time. For now, you are safe, you are at peace, and sleep is already near. So drift gently, softly into your dreams, and when you wake, may you carry with you the calm and quiet you found here tonight. Until we meet again, rest deeply, dream kindly, and remember, peace is always within you.